What's up? Welcome into Foxborough Rush. George Balekji here with Kasey Hudson. Got a fun show for you guys today. Case, how are we doing?
Really good. I feel like this is the first time we've done Foxborough Rush together. If not, then
In the
it's
new
only
digs.
the second.
In the new digs.
And it's been a very long time.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, a long time coming.
Reuniting the epic duo. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. So I was psyched about it.
We got a good show. Psyched to have you on. We got a good show for you guys today, as always we do. So we'll be talking a little Keion White. Is he flying under the radar for the Patriots? Is he flying under the radar across the NFL? Who are some guys that are underrated for the Pats that could step up this season as well? As we went through last week, ranked the quarterbacks in the AFC. We'll rank the quarterbacks in the NFC today. And like we always like to do on the show, we'll get to a mailbag, answer some of your questions as well. So let's start with Keion White. This is a guy coming in year 3, former second-round pick out of Georgia Tech, had the flashes as a rookie, regressed like the entire defense did in year 2 under DeMarcus Covington. Everything there was just chaos.
Right.
Patriots are putting that behind them. They could be year 2, year 11, year 7, year 27, doesn't matter. Everyone's forgetting about last season.
Right.
But heading into this one, a guy that is going to have a substantial role for the Pats, not just playing on the D-line, someone that's versatile, on a defensive scheme led by Terrell Williams that will have a 4-2-5 look to it, where it's going to be 4 pass rushers, 4 guys at the line of scrimmage, creating the havoc. He can do it all. So Pro Football Focus is actually writing and spotlighting him, saying that he is the most underrated player of the roster ahead of next season. Now, we will see how it lays out. When we go through who's underrated, who's not, I think Keion White, in a way, properly rated. But when you hear this going around, what do you think of a guy like Keion White? Could line up on the edge, could line up in the B gap, really versatile. And for a defense that was one of the worst pass rushes, the worst against a rush, the worst at getting the quarterback, the worst at creating pressures. So a defensive lineman obviously has a lot of expectations and a lot of responsibilities.
Right. I'm right there with you, George, actually, in the sense of, like, let's not scream underrated quite yet, in the sense of, like, the circumstances that he had to deal with. 2023 coming in, only had 4 starts, promising numbers within those 4 starts, even though he made appearances in 16 games. But then last year, you can only function so well underneath certain leadership. And when your team doesn't have much of an identity and all the other factors included in it, you can't really expect a player to play his best. Now, what I like is that looking at some similarities from where he was factoried, right? Georgia Tech football. There's a lot of similarities in terms of what Mike Vrabel's expectation is going to be and how he is going to function and what this defense is expected to present this coming fall. So I think he's going to have that ability to rise to his normal level of play and then some. So you're looking at a guy, you said it, who is going to be able to add to the pressure. Well, pass rush pressure is a big thing, point of emphasis from Mike Vrabel and what he's going to need. You mentioned the style and the different formations that's going to be expected of this defense. Georgia Tech had the same thing, running a 3-3 or a 4-2. So the versatility that's going to be expected, the not one formation, the being able to have different disguises, that's what he was factoried in. So now you have a head coach that has the same perspective and can really get that best football out of him. So not the top underrated guy, but definitely somebody who has so much more potential. And finally, again, I think he's going to be within the schematics to have his potential go to the next level. Yeah,
this is someone that was good in college, big physical player too, 6'5", 290, like all muscle, really smart player as well. What I liked about him as a rookie is that was a guy that literally lined up every gap, every part of the defensive line, whether he wants to be outside an offensive tackle, shoulder as an edge rusher, heads up on him, or line up in the B gap and be a guy that can interrupt a play in the interior of the pocket. Keion White is capable of all of that. Now, what DeMarcus Covington brought in his second year, Keion White's second year in the league, was heavy blitzes, and honestly, it was just not everyone was on the same page. The pass rush wasn't there. Keion White publicly stating, like, I'm not being coached properly in a way, or I'm not being used. Like, either trade me or just start using me the right way. Like, I don't care. I don't need to be here for me to be successful at football, is basically what he said.
Okay.
Then obviously what he said in training camp and mini camp too was pointing out, like, I'm getting coached now and I'm excited for that, where the coaches are slowing it down for him. Now, what his fit is, everything to me comes down to this defensive line, because their cornerback position group, Carlton Davis is the addition to Christian Gonzalez. Christian Gonzalez has that all-pro caliber level of play to him. But it's going to be a lot of man defense, and it's going to be a lot on the defensive line, breaking everything up. They got smaller in a way defensively, but they got faster. They got more athletic. They got more modern.
Right.
Now, we know what they're going to get on the interior. It's Milton Williams. It'll be Christian Barmore. It'll be Joshua Farmer. On the edges, though, Harold Landry and Keion White, a lot will be on their shoulders, affecting the quarterback. You mentioned what Mike Vrabel says, but it's all about that. If he can get back to his rookie season where he shows the flashes, where he shows his versatility in alignment, sometimes lining up as an off-ball linebacker and being like a UFO defender, trying to just make everything difficult for an offense to read, if he can do that, that's where he'll shine. But again, we go back to this because they're saying he's the most underrated player. This is a guy entering year 3 who struggled in year 2. To say he's underrated, I understand the potential is there. I just think he's properly rated, where not everyone's raving about him.
Right.
But especially if you're in Boston, you know what his importance is to this defense. But as it is, the parts are not bigger than the whole. The sum of the whole, or however that saying goes, I forget. But
the sum of the whole.
He is a key piece in contributing to a pass rush and stopping the rush. But again, if he's successful, it's because Barmore, Milton Williams are successful, and it's because Harold Landry, opposite of him, is successful. I don't think it's all on him. He can make an impact, but I don't think he's a guy that makes or breaks his defense in a way.
Maybe not makes or breaks, but the different things that we've discussed in terms of like the formations that he is used to, from Georgia Tech to Mike Vrabel to whatever the miscommunication was, or havoc being last year, I think that it also comes down to the fact of the point of emphasis of what the edge rushers are expected to do in Vrabel's system. Totally agree with you in the sense of I don't think you could be underrated if you were never putting up these like impressive numbers that people just weren't giving value or attention to. That's where underrated goes in my book. So I'm not putting him in the underrated category, but in terms of like him making an impact and him having solo moments to make an impact, I think that the expectation is there and that he is going to have to rise to it, especially for somebody who is almost like, trade me if I'm not going to be effective. Yeah. If you have that mentality, then you better have moments where you're okay with kind of taking things on the shoulders and making a wave on your own. So I think it's kind of a dual-edged sword in that sense. But like I said, like without proper leadership, without proper direction, how can you rise to your best potential? And I think that that's what he has to come into this season thinking of. Like, now he has the ability to rise to his best potential because there's so many similarities between what Vrabel's expectation is going to be and where he was factoried. Also, the fact that he can help with this transition. There are going to be some differences in this defense from what the Patriots did last year, and it's going to come back to the fact that you have to be versatile, you have to be able to manage a number of different disguises, and you have to be impactful in every single package Mike Vrabel asks you to be effective in.
No, 100%. Who else, when you look across this team, who else do you think, though, could be like an underrated player when it comes to the success of the team? And underrated in a way. Now, that's what I look at is how important, how significant they are for the team's success.
Right.
Because underrated, we can get into, man, Brandon Schooler's a really good special teams player. Like, it's special teams.
We can
it's important.
Focus too much.
It's important. And like TreVeyon Henderson's important to have that home run hitting ability. But does the success of this season hinge on TreVeyon Henderson being an explosive back? No, I think he could be good, and they will still win 9 to 10 games and maybe make it to a wild card spot.
Right.
When I see someone that's underrated, I mean, there is something there where they need them to be great.
See, I mulled over this question a little bit because, funny enough, when I'm like looking into underrated Patriots players, Pepper's name kept coming up over and over and over again. I
mean, I don't hate that call at all.
Right. So I kind of want to lean in that direction. I think everybody who watches Box Pro Rush already knows how much I want to find any soapbox possible to be like, it's going to be Henderson. It's got to be Henderson. But again, you have to have a foundation point in order to say underrated. Now, where I would make a case for Henderson is to say...
You can. Don't make me giving an example out there.
You know I'll find a way, George.
Walk you off the ledge on that one.
You know I will find a way.
If you think he's underrated, prove me wrong, by all means.
Circling back to Henderson. Where I lean so heavily on this one and why I'd say he's underrated is that for a number of Patriots fans or a number of mock drafts and conversations, this name was not one of the top names that were kicked around in terms of being a fit and being a guy who can come in and be exactly what the Patriots need. I leaned on that because, yes, was he spoiled enough to play behind a really outstanding offensive line for years in his career? Yes. But also that offensive line became extremely fractured in inopportune moments, and within that he was still productive. Now, carry that over to New England. You're talking about a Patriots offensive line that's still trying to work out some kinks, find an identity, all these things. You have a guy that knows how to be impactful in those moments. Also, we don't know what to expect out of sophomore Drake May. He could take that next step that's expected of him. There could be some kinks. We might not see his next level of play until halfway through the season, which means the run game is going to have to be stout and reliable. And by any means possible, I think that he's the best guy and fit for the job where he can really surprise people. So he's going to be my underrated guy.
No, I like that. I stuck defensive side and just went opposite of Keion White, Harold Landry. got the big signing
He's
bonus.
been really vocal during minicamp
He
and
is,
stuff.
and he's going to be a leader, but he's going to be 29 years old. And when this pass rush is this bad, you need a guy like a big signing like him. He needs to be that immediate impact guy. You can wait on a Braden Swinson, who's going to be a third down specialist of a pass rusher to start his career. You can wait on a Joshua Farmer. You could see how Jelani Tavai fits as a guy that can rush on the edge. Harold Landry has to step in, and this is also someone where we saw, since he recovered from an knee injury, maybe he's not in his prime, and that's fine. But also last season where his pass rush tapered off, his run defense tapered off. Now, that was his first time in Tennessee under a new defensive scheme with Terrell Williams gone, the whole staff gone, Mike Vrabel gone, of course. Reunited with Terrell Williams in New England, reunited with Mike Vrabel. It's the money. To me, it's the expectations of getting paid at that age.
True.
And it's how bad this pass rush was, the worst or one of the worst in the league, depending at what measurement, what category, what stat you're looking for.
Right.
Harold Landry on the outside has to be that guy. They need one of the two pass rushers to step up. I'm looking at Harold Landry, who played in the scheme before, who is the vet for him to have the big impact. That's why I go underrated, because I don't think he's being talked about enough in a way of, hey, this is a guy, the big signing, he's the vet, but they need him to play well. They need Keion White to play well. But I'm looking more towards Harold Landry, where you're brought in to do one thing and one thing only, and that's affect the quarterback. He has to do that.
I think that that's an acceptable expectation. Okay, so let's throw another guy into the mix, because you mentioned Christian Barmore, and he's somebody who obviously wants to make a statement upon his return, but he mentioned two guys that are just completely animalistic out there, and that was Keion as well as Milton. What's the expectation, you think, for Milton in terms of what he needs to do and where people think his sky is?
Same thing open up, especially a lot for Christian Barmore. Any defensive tackle, they're not going to play more than 60% of snaps, 65% of snaps. Now, he's coming from a Philadelphia Eagles ecosystem where he had Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Brandon Graham, Nolan Smith. The list goes on, and how deep they were. And he was amazing for them this past season. But when you take him away and you sign him away from Jalen Carter, arguably the best defensive tackle in the game. There's Quinnen Williams, there's Dexter Lawrence, there's Chris Jones, but there's Jalen Carter in that conversation. Now he's going to be the guy. It's him or Christian Barmore. Jalen Carter's a guy that eats up double teams. He's the guy that opens everything up for everyone around him. I think Milton Williams will have that spotlight on him. And especially with defensive tackles, it's not snap count, it's not sacks, though you want those there. It's not necessarily pressures, though you want him to generate those from the interior of the pocket. If he's eating up double teams and we see Barmore's game return to what it was or take that next step. Same thing with Landry, same thing with Keion White. Braden, whoever's rushing the passer around him, he opens things up for everyone else. That's what his impact is. So everyone knows the big contract he got, the biggest in Patriots history, how young he is. In a way, unproven, because again, you're playing next to Jalen Carter, you're going to look great. He has a lot of expectations, but that is someone too that the success of this defense, you could go across each defensive lineman and you can say how important they are to the success. Milton Williams, Harold Landry, though, those have to be guys. But to the point, though, if Milton Williams, maybe it's Christian Barmore that becomes a guy, eats up the double teams, and Williams breaks out, fine. Either or, you'll take at that spot.
Right.
Harold Landry, though, again, the vet, the price tag, how bad this pass rush was on the outside, he needs to be a lot better.
All right, so you're still sticking with him to be your guy.
I liked your Jabril Peppers pick, though, because that's someone that obviously was dealing with everything off the field, says that's behind him. We'll see the maturity that he follows through with. But that's a guy that can play in the box. And with all the talk and what this defensive scheme can be, 4 down defensive linemen, 2 guys in the box, and then 5 D-backs, it may not be 2 linebackers. Like, it doesn't have to be a Robert Spillane and a Jack Gibbons or a Robert Spillane and Christian Ellis. It could be a Robert Spillane and a Jabril Peppers in the box, or Kyle Duggar in the box with him, and Jabril Peppers being a guy that can play in the nickel, cover at free safety, walk up into the box as a strong safety. We know who the outside corners are going to be. We know Marcus Epps is going to be a free safety. You could throw in a Jalen Hawkins, but I could see where it's another free safety in Hawkins, depending on matchups. Kyle Duggar down in the box, and Jabril Peppers being that another versatile piece on defense, or maybe throwing a Marcus Jones. Jabril Peppers has more versatility to him. I
100%.
love Kyle Duggar, but he's better in the box matching up with tight ends. If Jabril Peppers plays well, it allows Duggar to play where he can be. I think that I like that call that you pointed out. That's an underrated piece in all of this.
Yeah, that's where I would lean defensively when it comes to underrated. Okay, selfishly, I always have to take my moment to be like, why did this name come to mind? Well, because 2017, actually, Tampa Bay Bucks were scoping this man out tremendously. We had so many scouting reports coming through mentioning how he'd be such a perfect fit out there. And because of certain injuries, and they were looking for another versatile safety to come into the mix, his name popped up so much because if they needed him to, he played a number of roles when he was in college. If they needed him to emulate the role of a linebacker, he had the capability of doing that. You talk about box play. Well, he's somebody that they trusted tremendously to do that if and when need be, no matter who the team was that they were going against. So it's funny just because as soon as the name came up, I saw that article pop up in my head and I saw the number of scouting reports that went around to media in Tampa back in 2017. So you're talking about, again, the theme of this defense, versatility, athleticism, because at the end of the day, some of these names might not be the biggest names talked about because we're sitting here talking about underrated players, but it's the mentality and the buy-in of Mike Vrabel that's going to make them a dominant defense regardless. Yeah,
and that's obviously Mike Vrabel's side of the ball. Terrell Williams is the first time as a defensive coordinator, but it's how this whole defense falls together where Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez are going to be playing man-up corners. That's why you get them. Two big, athletic, lengthy corners that are really good in coverage.
And hopefully stay healthy.
And then you see a Marcus Epps. They signed him. He's coming off an injury, but that's a guy that's the vet-free safety. Can Jalen Hawkins figure it out? Could Del Pettis maybe develop that into his game? We'd see how that would go. But you want Kyle Duggar in the box, and I think if you have two guys in the box where it's Spillane and Kyle Duggar, as those two bigger linebackers that can play rangy, play sideline to sideline, can cover, that opens up so much for the defense. And to a guy like Jabril Peppers, okay, you want 5 D-backs out there. If he is playing well as a safety and that allows Duggar to be whatever you want him to be, that's a guy, again, athletic, good, big, strong, is smart, but in a way where he needs to play in his spot. He doesn't work out as a coverage safety. That's not his strength. His strength is playing down in the box. Him next to a Robert Spillane, that could do so much for a Patriots defense. But for that to happen, you need Marcus Epps to be healthy and a good free safety. And you need someone like a Jabril Peppers to be stepping up as well. And then when it comes to basic matchups too, someone like Jabril Peppers can line up everywhere, except outside corner pretty much, but can do so much. And that's a guy, the key is a Mike Vrabel guy to the T. Hard hitter, plays fast, is relentless, is a leader, is all about football. He's everything Mike Vrabel preaches in a player. That's Jabril Peppers.
100%. Well, like you said, it's going to start at this defensive line more importantly than anything else. But I picked an offensive player and a defensive player. You didn't pick an offensive player to be underrated before we move on.
Kyle Williams. I think so. Obviously, he gets the wave, right, in a way of like it's hard for rookie receivers to pick up this Josh McDaniels system.
Right.
But Kyle Williams is great downfield as a receiver. They don't have that at all. He is good in between the numbers, which Drake May loves to throw to. And this is a guy, good route runner, is really patient, great footwork, good at the catch point as well, plays bigger than what his stature is. And watching him in person, he's bigger than what you see on film. Like you see him in person, he looks like a football player in a good way. This is a guy where is underrated because maybe he's getting the pass. Oh, he's a rookie. They got Stephon Diggs, right? He's flying under the radar. I think he's really important for this offense's success because Stephon Diggs is a slot. So is Pop Douglas. So is Kendrick Bourne. So is Jalen Poulter.
Yeah, slot's loaded.
They need someone down the field. To me, that's Kyle Williams. I have the offensive player ready. I appreciate you calling me out.
I had to make sure because I knew you set me up so perfectly to continue to air the tires that is Henderson. But I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know which direction you'd go in. And we know where Travis leans. He thinks the entire wide receiving room is just like dumpster fire. So I was like, let me see where George's mind is on
He thinks that about everything. And then he talks through it. And then he gets through on it. We'll take a break here on Foxborough Rush. When we're back, we'll be talking more for the safety position group right here on Foxborough Rush. Welcome back to Foxborough Rush. George Balekji, Kasey Hudson. All right, let's talk safety. So we're getting into detail about them. So you look at the Patriots safety group, Kyle Duggar, Jabril Peppers, obviously the vets of this group, Jalen Hawkins, finding his way into the league, is good as a free safety. Marcus Epps, free agency signing. Del Pettis, draft pick. Craig Woodson, the rookie. All of these guys have defined roles in a way. They all could be versatile in certain ways. This is a deep group, and that's what I love about it. I love the depth they have. I love the complementary pieces. And all of these guys, especially Jalen Hawkins, Marcus Epps, and Craig Woodson, really good coverage pieces. And I think that, my thing is, you want Kyle Duggar, that would be the drum I bang the whole time in Jabril Peppers, to play where they're strongest. Well, the guys that they either signed or drafted or retained, whatever, those are the dudes that let them play to their spots.
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of different responsibility, but Marcus Epps is what stands out to me here, considering some of the teams that he had a chance to play with, the timing and kind of the success that some of these teams found. It was around the miracle time for Minnesota. I mean, he was freshly in the league at this moment, but considering the guys he got to learn from and under, you're talking about one of the best secondaries in the league from 2016, 17, 18, 19 when it came to Minnesota and what they were producing. They had Harrison the Hitman, they had all these people that he could learn from that he's referred back to. So I want to see what his impact is going to be, but you keep mentioning Duggar, probably because of the ability to be a leader on this team. I just wonder what kind of leader he'll have the opportunity to be, but I'm seeing that there might be some contractual push and shove here if Epps comes in and makes more of an impact or tends to be a little bit more of a leader in comparison to Duggar, regardless of slight different responsibilities.
Yeah, and I think if Epps steps in and he's a good free safety, and Kyle Duggar steps in and he's a good in-the-box safety, can match up with tight ends, match up with slot receivers, and also be good in the run defense, then if they complement each other, like that's what you want. It's the cohesion of this. And even a guy like Amarte Mapu, who again this will be year 3 of him being in the league, can't consistently be on the field. As seen, same thing in a way of a Jabril Peppers. Is he an in-the-box linebacker, but he's more athletic? All right, or is he a safety? He's worn the green dot in practice. He's worn it in games. He's really young to be doing that. That was a Bill Belichick draft pick where a lot of evaluators loved him coming out of Sacramento, but was still a guy that, is raw, is unpolished, wasn't playing at the high, Power 5, Power 4 level. That's someone that can get into all of this. It's with Duggar, it's in the box. With Jabril Peppers, it's free safety. Craig Woodson, the rookie that they took out of Virginia, he can line up in the nickel, and we've heard Mike Vrabel say that position is so important. You have to match up with nickel corners. He could be a deep third safety. He could be on the boundary as a cornerback in the deep third again in the field. How is he matching up in man in the NFL if he needs to play that? And that's where, again, this is all progress and development, and we'll see. Where Marcus Epps is that vet to help teach these safeties how to play. He's helping lead this defense. Where Craig Woodson, he may not be what he really is. Again, that's a 4th-round pick. He may not be what he truly is until you get to year 3, possibly, and then you see him really make an impact.
Yeah, I guess the biggest concern with it is, like you just mentioned, there's some young guys on here, and I think that they're going to have a lot that they're going to have to be able to deliver when it comes to this upcoming season. But that's also where I think, like you said, sometimes it's like picks from Bill Belichick, and they need to be polished by Vrabel and company and that position group that's going to be pushing forward. Do you think that because of the expectation of this defense and the versatility and the athleticism, because they are athletic players, that they'll be able to manage this tall task at a young age?
Yeah, with Craig Woodson, I mean, that's a guy that can line up all over, and he's a really good open field tackler as well. He's someone I think that's the nickel corner, and he can play some free safety again in the coverage. What you get with Jabril Peppers, and this is the last real year of the contract for him. Well, Kyle Duggar has a few years left, like real money actually getting paid. Yeah, for Peppers in a way, yeah, it is a prove a year, and perfect coaching staff for him to prove it to. I don't think he goes out and gets another big contract, his age and the wear and tear on his body, but someone that wants to get another contract and remain in the league. With Kyle Duggar, that's a guy too. I think it's most proven on him. They have the capabilities though. It's the athleticism, it's the IQ. And when you go back 2 years ago, when Jabril Peppers was there playing with a Kyle Duggar, and the defense was playing really well. For one of the worst offenses in the league, the defense was stepping up in Belichick's last year. It's those flashes. And what never made sense with last season, or maybe the most puzzling part, for as bad as the Patriots offense was in 2022, 23, 24, the defense always was showing up. Except for last season. Like we saw in Mac Jones' rookie year, defense was top 5. During the Patricia Joe Judge experimental season of 2022, defense was top 5, top 10. And even the following year when Bill O'Brien was in, I mean, it was basically everything was falling apart. The defense was showing up and keeping them in games. For it to all disassemble like we saw last season, that was a tough part to wrap your mind around watching this Patriots team because they had the same players. There were injuries. Peppers had a suspension. Christian Barmore had his blood clots. Juwan Bentley went down with the season-ending injury. Like that all matters and that all adds up. But again, they weren't in tune, and the scheme DeMarcus Covington was running, Gerard Mayo with his defensive background, it didn't make sense. With good coaching, we've seen these guys do it. That's where the confidence comes through in a way.
Okay, so I love the breakdown of this because you mentioned basically they've always been a pretty good defense. Now, do you think it's fair to say that this position group, being what it is, the names that you've dropped, the expectation on them in the upcoming season is considered the weakest position?
No, I would say the weakest, and it's funny because of how top-heavy they are, if we're talking on the defense, but I would go with the cornerback room. Because you have Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis, and then it gets really thin from that point on.
Okay.
Marcus Jones, undersized nickel corner. Alex Austin is good at man. But then after that, it's a lot of unproven pieces. And like I talk about Craig Woodson, he might have to play a lot of nickel corner. So when I say weakest, this safety group has so much depth and a lot of talent.
Right. Reliable depth is something in
exactly.
its own. Right.
Exactly. But like outside of Gonzalez and Carlton Davis, if one of those guys gets injured, if something happens to one of those guys, or you need cornerbacks to step up, it's a thin room for the cornerback room.
Okay.
How do you view, because you throw that out there, how do you view the safety room for this Patriots team? You think it's the weakest room out of all the position groups, or?
No, I don't think it's the weakest room. We've basically emphasized it enough to say, considering what Vrabel is expecting from these guys, I think that he has the right mentality in play for most of these defensive groups. But you make a great point. I think we've talked so much about Carlton Davis and Gonzalez that we didn't realize that, like, what was that drop-off point? Who's the next guy? And God forbid injuries, like who's the next most reliable cornerback? So I have to realistically say, didn't put that into context quite yet. For me, the weakest room, weirdly enough, I would almost say running back.
Okay, so you're looking on the offensive side.
I'm going back to the offensive side.
I mean, it's Ramondre has to hold on to the ball. The offensive line has to block.
Yeah,
Travion Henderson, that's a lot of expectations on a rookie. And again, like a lot of rookies redshirt their like quote unquote redshirt their rookie season in a McDaniels system.
Yeah.
And so you have Antonio Gibson and Ramondre Stevenson coming back. We know McDaniels wants to run the ball. We know the play action is essential for success in today's NFL, and just running the ball is essential for success overall. That all needs to happen. So we'll see what happens next. But I like the running back room if you go with the weakest, if you go all across the roster, not just focusing on the defense only.
Right. That's where I was. I don't know. I don't mean to keep jumping back to the offensive side, but just looking at it
wherever we're talking ball
as a whole, it's become concerning. But I thought that was interesting because the way that you broke things down, like to say that the safety room potentially is the weakest one or could be. I just thought that that's where you can look at something being underrated and completely overlooked. I think that this team is going to help, or the safety group is going to help this team out a lot.
It's all about keeping everything in front of them. It's the guys in the box that can make havoc, and it's when you have 4 down defensive linemen where you want them to rush the passer. Everyone else keeps everything in front of them, and if you play man up, you need those guys to execute. It's who can step up in those facets. Now, we know Jabril Peppers obviously dealt with his off-the-field issues last season, was away for the team for the duration of the season. Kyle Duggar never seemed healthy. He was battling something. It was a high ankle sprain we know about, but just like he never seemed 100%. The names to watch, though, really is a guy like a Jalen Hawkins who was good for this team. Didn't play a lot of reps at free safety, but if he can take a next step and be someone that's out there for, let's say, 70% of defensive snaps, I mean, that's a huge win for the potential of this Patriots defense. If Del Pettis can make a step up and play, say, 50, 60% of defensive snaps, like that's a part where I wouldn't be shocked if they have these guys stepping up. Let's say an Alex Austin steps up or a Marcus Jones steps up, and they are key contributors at cornerback position. That would shock me. I know what they're getting with the top 2 in the cornerback room. And that's where I try to think of the weakest, where this safety room, different definition, is definitely, to me, the deepest on this Patriots team. Because if we stick with the weakest 2, I would go with the weakest being the wide receiver room, opposite of the running backs.
I was wondering if that was going to come up.
I like Stephon Diggs, but when he's talking to reporters and he's kind of doing the, like, I don't share my personal life, people I don't know personally, but he's posting everything on Instagram, and then he posts the pink brownies, obviously alluding to the alleged pink drugs. Like, all right, that lack of maturity. And then Jalen Polk, and then Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, like, what are you doing at this point? And I know they were headaches to the coaching staff, and can they even be active on Sundays? Pop Douglas is undersized, doesn't run block. Kendrick Bourne is getting up there in age, okay? And Kyle Williams, this is a tough playbook to pick up as a rookie. To me, that's the weakest point, because they don't have anyone that's of elite talent.
Yeah.
And they also, it's not that deep because it's a lot of unproven guys in that room.
Yeah, and they don't have, while they have a veteran in Stephon Diggs, they don't have that like pull away presence of somebody who's just completely separated from the group and has that much more to offer from a leadership perspective or anything else. He said that he likes to do individual conversations for his leadership go ahead, but unfortunately he can't look away from how he's carried himself so far. Chisholm, for you.
If he makes a team, it's passing camp what they've done so far. The mandatory mini camp. There's no pads on.
So you're ready to see.
I like his route running. Yeah, and that's it. Like that's a good name to bring up. But exactly, like the fact that an undrafted free agent could realistically make an impact and let alone play substantial snaps
Chris
is
Hogan
also.
did.
a reflection on the talent in that wide receiver room.
Yeah.
So it's dual edged. He can be good. That's also a guy where I'm not going to bank on him because it could be the Julian Edelman route where he's a contributor in a particular role 2 or 3 years, and then maybe year 3, year 4, then he breaks out as a receiver.
Right.
There's a big developmental curve. New offensive system, tough, complex system of Josh McDaniels, Drake May coming along as well. For him, not just to make the jump from playing at Washington State to the NFL, but if you're an undrafted free agent, like the draft is telling us what the NFL views you as, the talent evaluators view you as. So you have to go from being a guy that 32 teams passed on 7 times to now making impact. I like Chisholm. I like the base of his game. That's someone I like you bring that name up, but like the fact that you bring him up and I have to think about it, again, that's a reflection on the wide receiver room.
Yeah, it's true. You had to give it an extra moment, and that's, again, all talking about with no pads on it, so we don't know the reality behind anybody's ability. So let me ask you this before we circle back to the defense, or it's going to get us back to the defense. What do you think the emphasis should be in this free agent market? Because the names that are coming up the most, you're looking at an add to the wide receiving room, hopefully, because the money is there, the capability is there. As long as the buy-in of the retool is there, then you're looking at a number of fits. But would you add depth to that cornerback room? If you had to pick one?
No. I'm fine with, yes, I would add depth to the cornerback room. But if I had to pick one, and again, like Craig Woodson can end up playing corner, it could change a lot. And I think you can figure out ways with all the safety depth you have and the free safeties to make it work. Again, when you get out of camp, what does a wide receiver room look like? What does a cornerback room look like? I know I keep throwing out like Alex Austin's names like he's not substantial. That was a guy that was like a starting corner at the end of 2 seasons ago. That's a guy that plays good in man. 6 foot plus, bigger cornerback, was developed well by Mike Pellegrino, who was a former cornerbacks coach for the Patriots. That's someone I believe in. If there is an ad and you got to pick one, I'm swinging for that wide receiver room. And to me, it's more of a trade and sign like a Terry McLaurin if he continues to hold out with the Commanders. It's going a route in that way. If you had to pick one or the other, where would you go?
Wide receiving room.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that one.
You paid Carlton Davis a lot of money. You gave him $30 million plus at signing. Christian Gonzalez is one of the best corners in the league and is so talented. You have that top end talent where you can be a little thinner in a way. Like you
want that name you can brag about a little bit. So I feel like there's a number of names. And you don't have that with the wide receiver room. Exactly. And look, I'll take full ownership. I was totally okay with Stephon Diggs coming in.
No, I was too.
I'm also realistic of the fact of the coming off of injury, how impactful, what the reps are going to look like, what the role is really going to look like. So for that name, for that sellable name that needs to be in the mix, I feel like there's a couple of them on defense, and definitely the personalities over there to say so. I don't think it translates to the offense.
I need chain movers and guys that are man beaters. And Stephon Diggs is good with that against zone. Kyle Williams can be that, but he's a rookie. Again, acclimation, learning curve of picking up the system is going to be difficult. In the wide receiver room, and it's Terry McLaurin because we talked about it on Rush. If it doesn't work out with him in Washington, I would be baffled if they let him walk and they don't extend it because they're in the win now window and he's just 30 years old and he's so good. But if they can trade for him and sign him with the cap room they have, as you alluded to, I'm doing that 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, well, I think what's also more appealing about him as well is the ability to work with young quarterbacks. I mean, look at what Washington just did and the composure that they had about them and the excitement that they had around them. I think that when you hear a lot of these players talk through minicamp and OTAs and stuff, it's been a fresh energy, but the level of energy being there, I'm not seeing it from Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
You need to see it from a leadership presence to just bring the best out of Drake May. And yes, he's got other guys he can rely on, but just to have somebody that has that vocality, knows how to work with a young quarterback and be able to find success with a young quarterback, I think that's what makes Terry McLaurin that much more appealing as a fit.
And it's beyond like the Jaden Daniels. It's like going back to Taylor Heineke days of Washington.
Like,
and he's
who the heck thought that he'd be working with Taylor Heineke? Like, it's ridiculous what he had to overcome over there and still made it seem fun and doable.
Yeah, and a leader, which they need, because Stephon Diggs isn't giving that all the way.
Yeah.
Take another break here on Foxborough Rush. When we come back, we'll be ranking the quarterbacks in the NFC. Yeah, we'll be talking plenty of quarterback coming up after this break on Foxborough Rush. Welcome back to Foxborough Rush. All right, Casey. So we had fun with this one for the AFC. We're gonna go quarterback, and you can go situations like literally, world is your oyster with this one. So it doesn't have to strictly be quarterback. I'm going overall whole environment of an offense.
Okay.
And that's how we're gonna rank the NFC quarterback situation. because I know with the Giants, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be.
Right.
With the Saints, we don't know who it's going to be. It could be Tyler Shuck, but we'll see.
There.
Other guys to another spots. So I'll start 16th spot for me. Very simple. It's very easy. Tyler Shuck and the New Orleans Saints.
Ooh.
I like the offensive line. I like Chris Olave. But that is a team to me that is just shaping up to tank and get Arch and do a slow rebuild with a new head coach.
You're on the Arch
offensive-minded.
train too, huh?
I know we haven't seen much, but it gets to that point. Or it could be
May as well.
quarterback out of South Carolina. It could be Nussmeier out of LSU, whoever it may be. I just think that entire existence, that Saints roster, is so puzzling to watch, so perplexing. And out of every quarterback situation in the NFC, I think that one is the worst.
Yeah, they're the ones that make the NFC South look really bad.
Yeah.
But funny enough, because you said the basically whoever, whatever, whenever, almost on the cusp of Shakira lyrics there, I actually have him as 16 as well. Because what is the New Orleans Saints? Who are the New Orleans Saints? When you got to ask that question, I can't evaluate the quarterback, what he's going to be working with, what anything is going to look like. So for that reason, and that reason mainly, is where I threw him down to 16.
I like the rebuild in a way they're doing. Like, it's first-round pick after first-round pick on their offensive line. It was Talise Fuaga out of Washington last year. It's Kelvin Banks out of Texas this year. They're putting it together. It's all about protection up front. Right. The Tyler Shuck draft pick was brilliant in a way because Derek Carr retired. They got a guy that can play now, but someone that they're not connected to. It wasn't a first-round pick. It wasn't that high of a draft pick where they could draft him. And this is someone that can be a bridge quarterback in a way. Even if they get Arch, you can let Arch sit for some time and Shuck can hold it down. I'm so intrigued by the situation. I hate it. 15, I went with the New York Giants. And I was back and forth, but if I'm going to be true and say situation, it's Brian Dable as a play caller. It's an offensive line that's good. It's a running game that can get the job done. It's Malik Neighbors as one of the best receivers in the league and should make a really big sophomore jump. I take Russell Wilson out of this. It's Jameis Winston while you develop a Jackson Dart. I don't hate this situation that they have in New York.
It's going to sound silly, but because of the Jackson Dart aspect of it, I wanted to bump them up to like 14, 13, but still too many question marks for me. And, okay, look, you're talking about a girl whose brother played and won a national championship with Jameis Winston. So there's a little bit of faith there when he tries to like focus forward on the task at hand. But yeah, it's more so the potential of where Jackson Dart can go here. You mentioned Malik Neighbors and his capability and how he's made this team exciting in some of their worst moments. But considering the rest of the list, you can't bump them any further than 15. We remain lockstep.
It's also just, it's still like, it's Russell Wilson. I think that's like the anchor that drags him down.
You see, I didn't even name him though. And it's nothing personal. It's just like, For me, it'd be personal. There you go.
Who do you have at 14? I went first. Who do you have at the 14?
All right, I'll take over here. 14, and I hate that I feel this way. I got J.J. McCarthy. And it's only because we don't know. We don't know. You come into the league and everybody's very excited about you. I'm right there. I was super excited to see what he was going to do and how he's going to take over. And then you accumulate this injury. So the injury factor always weighs in because I don't know what your time of return, your time of success, your time of impact is actually going to look like. Some small changes there, but yes, you've got one of the best wide receivers in the league to work with, but that doesn't always pan out as you expect. You know what I mean? And like, what is this offensive line going to look like moving forward? Is there going to be some consistency to them, getting him up to speed? So that's the only reason he's down at 14 because I was very excited about where this kid could go.
Okay, I see it. 14, I went Bryce Young. A lot of people liked what they saw at the end of the season with him. I love Dave Canales. I like how they redid that offensive line. I love the wide receiver room with the Tet McMillan, but that's a rookie. Xavier Legette. Coker as well as a wide receiver that stepped up. And I like that structure that they have. I'm just still like not all the way in on Bryce Young. And that's a guy that when he was benched, I said I think it's the best thing for him. Because if a team's going to bench a quarterback as he's still developing middle of the season, they're seeing everything and they go, the best thing for him is to just rest, reset, sit down, and let the game slow down for him in some way by picking it up. And he had a good end of the season, how he finished for like Bryce Young standards. The long term there, I just don't see it. I think the short term, he's not a guy that you will win games because of. And long term, I just don't see him as a viable NFL option. So that's why I have Bryce Young and the Panthers, the third worst quarterback situation in the NFC.
Yeah, the Panthers have been rough. Canales, I have my own situation against with him quickly pivoting out of Tampa.
Why? Because he left Tampa after 1 year?
Yeah.
Liam Cohn did the same thing.
Exactly.
Canales got a head coaching job.
You don't hear me raving about either of these guys.
That's fair.
No, but all of that joking aside, considering where the Panthers situation lied. I think that we did see some flashes and some opportune moments from a young quarterback such as Bryce Young. I feel like because he couldn't rely on the guys around him too much, it probably impacted his level of play, but more importantly, his health.
Yeah.
So not that I have him skyrocketed up too much. That's where I just kind of have the flip on it. So there's not too much more to say considering we're still trying to figure out what the Panthers are going to be able to bring to the table. Defense helped them stay in a number of conversations. So we have no idea the identity of this offense yet.
13th best in the NFC. I went Michael Penix with this. I like his offensive structure. It's Drake London.
Okay.
It's obviously some good receivers around him. It's Kyle Pitts, Ville State. It's Bijan Robinson. This is someone, again, we saw the small sample size. I think he could be good. He comes in as an NFL-ready arm, but it's just something with Atlanta, the lack of the consistency, how bad that defense was, and that offense never seemed to get on track last year. I have Michael Penix. I just don't, it's more of a reflection on the Falcons and the overall play of Michael Penix here for me.
Yeah. Okay, this one, I actually have Sam Darnold.
Don't hate it.
Right. Biggest.
It's a fun, he's polarizing. Go, sorry.
Yeah, well, it's just like, he's had his moments where you're like, could he do more? Could he be better?
Could he be an MVP last year, which he looked like?
Exactly, career year just about. And then tanking just comes. And the inconsistency and the unreliability. And then to see him over pivoting to the Seahawks, like.
Clint Kubiak, it's a good match, but then it's Cooper Kupp and Jackson Smith and Jigba, who are two slot receivers on the inside. That's an offense I just don't know.
Right. There's too many pieces that I'm just trying to figure out. How are you guys going to cohesively be effective and be a little scary? Like Sam Darnold just got scary, and then all this change came about.
Lights got bright in the playoffs, and he just looked like Sam Darnold that we saw in New York all over again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, bud.
I have him in a couple spots right behind him. I don't love it, but I do put Caleb Williams, and to me, it's a matter of the maturity with him. Yeah, Ben Johnson. They rebuilt that offensive line in Chicago. You obviously have a good receiving room. You have good pass catchers for tight ends. You have a run game there. And then they go out, and the guys that they add as well, Colston Loveland in the draft, Luther Burden in the draft. These are guys that Ben Johnson just can't pass up on, and where he could develop them to be in his system that made Jared Goff, too, look like an MVP caliber quarterback. That's who he is as a play caller. It comes down to Caleb Williams, the maturity. Can he just focus on football? And it's even, again, it's like the people around him. Can you keep it small and just make the main thing be football for him? Or is it going to be the Caleb that has to deal with his dad leaking out quotes to the media that he never wanted to get drafted to the Bears? Stop with the distractions and focus on the football.
Well, I think at this point, none of that would even be relevant. So hopefully it's not a part of it.
Yeah.
Right. But what the biggest thing for me when I look at Caleb Williams is how well he weathered a terrible offensive line in front of him. And I think in some of those moments you saw more maturity than expected.
Yeah.
But where the maturity needed to carry over towards the end of the season, when there was some moments that were curtailed better for his success to the best of their ability, we're talking about the Bears here, he kind of started to fall short. And that's where I think his maturity started to dwindle down a little bit, or he was presented with situations he just wasn't capable of handling quite yet in his career. So they made a lot of the right moves in the offseason. I know that the Bears have a tendency to scream from the mountains in the offseason that this is finally happening, but I think he's in a position to finally find some success with this Bears team and what's going on in front of him. Keep the noise on the outside. He's already dealt with it. He knows how to surpass it. So I think he can move forward in a better manner.
Be good. I like Caleb. I have high expectations of him. 11, I have Sam Darnold. We talked about him. 10th spot, I do have J.J. McCarthy, and it's all Kevin O'Connell here. Because what Kevin O'Connell did with the Sam Darnold and the lack of mental toughness we saw from Sam Darnold, I believe in J.J. McCarthy here. With Justin Jefferson, with Jordan Addison, with a good run game, with an offense that is so QB-friendly, and Kevin O'Connell that does so much, I like J.J. McCarthy at my 10th spot.
All right. My 10th spot is actually Michael Penix Jr.
It's fair.
Right. But you basically already said it. A lot of chaos when it comes to the Falcons. And, you never know what you're going to get with them. Not to mention is that sometimes you had some veterans in the mix. Sometimes you just had more young guys in the mix trying to figure it out. It was the fact that when you pull Kirk Cousins, and I know some people believe in him, some people don't believe in him, but to have a veteran like Kirk Cousins that you paid astronomical money to. And then you make a decision throughout the season that it's going to be Penix Jr., might as well get him the reps. And for him to have some games that did move the needle with all the chaos going on around him, I think if things can calm down just a bit, then we're going to see a more competitive guy who can kind of settle in and take over that team, because that's what he has to do now.
A guy I want to take a step up, I think I'm the leader in his fan club, but he just doesn't put it all together, but it's Jordan Love who I have at 9 for me. With the Packers, with Matt LaFleur, with that receiving room that got better, Matthew Golden, Savion Williams, to pair up with the Jaden Reed and the Dontavian Wicks, and we'll see if if Christian Watson could just stay healthy. I love Jordan Love, but it's always like there's the start and then there's the finish.
Right.
Where you see the base, you see the flashes, you just want to see the whole body of work be put together consistently. He hasn't been healthy. He's been let down by his receiving room, especially downfield. That's why they got a Matthew Golden, guys like that. But with Matt LaFleur as a play caller, with the structure of this offense, it's so QB friendly. I love Jordan Love. I would have him higher up, but it's just like not putting it all together. And it's 2 years now. Year 3, I'm hoping. I hope that next step is taken by him in the breakthrough.
Okay, funny enough, I have Jordan Love a bit higher.
Yeah,
right here slotted in, whom I have is Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I have him 8.
Yeah.
It's Kyler.
Yeah.
Trey McBride, we'll see the step forward MHJ makes. I just don't think he's a leader. I don't think he's a winning quarterback.
Same.
So I have Kyler at 8. I put Dak Prescott at 7.
Same.
Who do you have at 8?
I have Kyler Murray at 8. Is that where we were just at?
Yeah.
And then I have Dak Prescott at 7.
Oh, so you have Jordan Love in front of both of them.
I have Jordan Love at 6.
Okay.
My pitch for Jordan Love is how do you develop as a quarterback when your wide receivers cannot stay healthy? And I was like all over the Christian Watson fan club and so on and so forth. Like, you're just talking about somebody who has had to game plan for so many different contingencies, and then on top of that, work through his own injury this previous season. Came back, had a hell of a game. So I just like the grit that you're seeing on such a young guy and all of the adversity. Like, if you don't have wide receivers that you can trust, and I'm not taking away from what Romeo Doubs has done and what these guys have done, but it's just like he has to consistently have a contingency plan for how he's going to air out that ball. And I think he did tremendous with the cards that he was dealt.
And it's also Christian Watson is like the downfield guy, and he's always injured. It's hamstrings, it's groins, it's whatever. It's just not healthy. And again, we'll see the impact Matthew Golden can make, because the deep ball tracking, that's what he's fantastic at. And that's what Jordan Love, that's the strength of his game.
Yeah.
So I have Dak Prescott at 7. I have Baker Mayfield at 6.
Okay.
And this is a guy, I feel like I ranked him a little too low. But if I'm going quarterback situation, 5 through 1, it's play callers, it's wide receiver rooms, it's talent around them. But I mean, as I'm saying that about Baker Mayfield, it is him with Mike Evans. We'll see Emeka Egbuka's impact. We'll see if Chris Godwin, if he's even effective this year. But as you alluded to with Dave Canales, you can only have so many play callers in so many years. It's Canales, he takes a head coaching job. It's Liam Cohen, he takes a head coaching job. Right. It shows the eye that they have in Tampa of hiring their OCs because they become these head coaches.
Yeah.
But how many switchovers can you make? How many different systems can you have? I love Baker. I think he's at his ceiling. He's really good. Cleveland should have never let him go. Like that's something they have to deal with. He's great in Tampa. I should have him at 6. And again, it's not like a bad 6. It's just the 5 in front of him. Those are the guys in front of him.
No, very true. Like I said, we have the same thing with Prescott. He gets injured too much, and I just don't care for anything going on there. Baker Mayfield, I'll say this. His ability to lead, especially in third down moments where Tampa Bay was so impactful this previous season.
Yeah.
And what's a quarterback without his wide receivers? I just think that he was still able to manage so well. Again, Chris Godwin going out, that was not idealistic, but he shouldered his team as much as he could and found a way to prevail forward. And I think we saw another notch out of Baker Mayfield, and that's not just because of the Tampa Bay love. After Baker, I do have Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I have Brock Purdy at 5 as well. Debo's gone. I don't know what they have with Ayuk. We'll see if Ricky Pearsall makes a step forward. George Kittle got paid, but he's getting up there in age. It's Kyle Shanahan in that San Francisco scheme, him getting paid, that coming off his shoulders. He's really accurate. He's really athletic. He executes this system flawlessly, just about, and he's had them get to big games. I love Brock Purdy. What the Niners had to do is hit a really hard reset. Let all these guys walk, extend a few like a Fred Warner, like a Brock Purdy, completely redo their entire defensive line. A lot of rookies, a lot of young guys there in the room, and they're going to have to figure out their wide receiver room as they go. But this is a guy I trust if Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings are your top 2 receivers, because I just don't know what you get with Brandon Ayuk. I loved the signing. I loved the extension. Yeah. But you just see in the short glimpse when he was healthy, it's just not working out, and he's coming off the knee injury. It's Brock and it's Kyle Shanahan, and that's why I have him 5. Lockstep
on top of the fact of I like how he managed and weathered this team when he stepped in, and the expectancy for him to be the QB1 was never there a couple years ago. So kudos to Brock Purdy. 4, Jared Goff.
Yeah, I have Jared Goff 4 as well. Without Ben Johnson, though, we're going to see.
That's true.
But he has Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, he has Sam Laporta. That offense is good, but he lost his offensive coordinator and play caller. He lost his passing game coordinator, Tanner Engstrad, who went to New York with Aaron Glenn. That's a lot of turnover. I'll see what we get from Jared Goff. It's again, and I think this is the reflection for me, is like the top 3 that I see. Yeah. At 3, I have Jaden Daniels. Awesome rookie season. Obviously took him to the NFC Championship game, but I have him at 3.
I have Matthew Stafford.
And I have Stafford at 2. So,
okay.
And
I think we can continue this one, but I only have Matthew Stafford because when certain reliabilities didn't pan out, I feel like we just kind of saw a little bit of a different QB out of him. But he's weathered pressured moments almost better than anybody on this list.
He's won a Super Bowl. Long term, like Jaden Daniels, that's number one in the NFC. That's the guy you want.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm going Jaden Daniels 3, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, MVP caliber guy, Matt Stafford and Sean McVay with that wide receiver room, Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua. And then I won, as we do process of elimination, is Jalen Hurts.
Yes, it is.
At first I did have Jaden Daniels 1, and I was like, where do I put Hurts? But I hit that reset and reassessed it.
Yeah, I wavered on Hurts too for a minute, but I will say we saw maturity in the things that he needed to clean up over, not last year, but the year before last year, because there was a lot of conversation on him jumping the gun on when to run the ball and kind of being too risky with certain situations. We saw the same maturity from Josh Allen as well. So for him to take that next step, take his team to a Super Bowl, I had to keep him at 1.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a quick break here on Foxborough Rush. That's the QB rankings in the NFC. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Foxborough Rush. We'll do a quick mailbag. So from Eric Super Patriot 5817, that's a thing. Hopefully there's a pass rush this year. I think the pass rush has to be better, especially with a healthy Christian Barmore. 1,000%. We talked about all the success of this defense hinging on the success of the pass rush. Christian Barmore's back from blood clots, so that's behind him. He sounds like and looks like he's all go, and he's excited to be back. Harold Landry, Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Keion White, they have to be the 4 guys up front. Pass rush, no doubt about it, has to be better.
100%. You said it. Barmore said it himself. Prove that he is still himself, that he'll always be him, but more importantly, he thinks that after the blood clot situation, people forgot who he was. That's pretty scary for an athlete to be like, don't forget who I am, which means he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, and I'm excited to see that. The other guys that you mentioned, kind of going back to Keion for just 2 seconds, he had a comparison to Carlos Dunlap, and I'll never forget that because, of course, we competed with the Florida Gators a lot back home, and Dunlap was a key asset to that, but you're talking about a guy that collapsed the pocket quite a bit, got his hands on balls, was able to deflect passes, and that's exactly what this team needs to step up in the sack category as well as deflecting passes category.
Christian Barmore is going to be big. Keion White's going to be big. It's also, again, what do they get from later draft picks? Joshua Farmer, again, another rotational piece at defensive tackle as an interior pass rusher. Same thing with the Braden Swinson and some other guys that they get beyond that. She's Kasey Hudson. I'm George Balekji. This is Foxborough Rush. Make sure to catch new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 to 2 p.m. on NESN Nation. Also catch all our episodes on NESN's YouTube page. Hit subscribe, give a thumbs up, leave a comment. That's how you get into the mailbag. You can also email us to thechat@nesn.com, tweet at us, comment on Instagram, or call and leave a voicemail, 617-790-0928. Leave a voicemail and we'll use it on the show. For GB and Kasey Hudson, we'll see you guys next time.